Is programming a creative act, or is it our perception and definition of art being challenged by the technological revolution? In this video, we're going to explore the arguments that support programming as a creative act, while considering the elements that make it different from other forms of expression such as painting or writing. So first, we have to mark a clear distinction between art and non-art. And listen, this is not an easy task because the eternal debate about what art is will continue as long as subjectivity remains part of the human condition. So, just as an example, I find beauty in the mathematical expressions of the laws of nature, physical formulas, or in books like Crime and Punishment, which don't directly convey beauty but explore darker themes. But still, I consider it art because of the emotion it evokes in me. But on the other hand, you might not perceive these examples as art at all, but rather as random symbols describing reality, describing how things work, or as a melancholic book for depressing people. And that's fine. That's completely fine because maybe when you dance or watch a performance, the emotion it evokes in you make you consider dancing as art. But for me, it's nothing. I don't even understand it. I'm not even interested in dancing. Or perhaps it's just because my inability to dance, the best that I can do in parties is this movement. But anyway, if art is subjective, does that mean everything is art? Not necessarily, because interpretation is important, but so is influence. In the traditional definition of art, there's always a common element present in any work that is going to help us in this video, which is creativity. Creativity. This important human characteristic that has taken civilization to the peak of intelligence. Just think about it. We've split the atom. We can modify the DNA of an unborn baby to prevent diseases. And we've connected the entire world to the internet. All of this have been achieved by unconventional thinkers throughout history who used their power of creativity to come up with innovation, groundbreaking ideas. But it's not just because they were different. Maybe they had an innate talent that made them more competent in certain areas. But that's just a small piece of the puzzle. And usually that argument just serves as an excuse for not working hard. So don't justify incompetence with poor time management. So I will dedicate an entire video to creativity. But for now, if we define the creative act, creating something, as the way you solve problems, not just the solution. I'm talking about your solution, your ideas, your mind, because you are unique. Even if we are exposed to the same information, then programming is a clear example of creativity. Now, if creativity is an important element of any work of art contains an element of creativity, then any creative act could be considered art in the eyes of the person who experiences an emotional reaction to it, like this sense of beauty, this sense of darkness, this sense of something, like an emotional reaction. So now we're going to talk about the role of programming in all of this, because I see programming as the intersection between art and science, bringing unique elements compared to other forms of expression. Programming is pure logic. When you write code, your logic is interpreted by someone else's logic. What does that even mean? For example, if you're coding a web app in React, your JavaScript code is interpreted by the JavaScript engine in the browser. So it's V8 in Chrome, it's SpiderMonkey in Firefox, and I forgot Safari's engine, I think it's JavaScript something, and no one cares about it. So the JavaScript engine itself is another program created by someone else. I think it's usually written in C++ with its own logic, libraries, functions, and so on. Now, if your JavaScript code, which is your logic represented in code, the language syntax following certain rules, is not properly integrated with the engine, then the code won't work at all. In other words, if you don't write code with the engine's logic in mind, you're not following the structure needed to make it work. But at the same time, the JavaScript engine must be compiled for a specific processor architecture, which, yeah, you guessed it, is another program written by someone else based on their logic. And the JavaScript engine must comply with that architecture so everything functions correctly. Actually, this whole process is managed by the application binary interface, the API, which is provided by the operating system. It usually receives parameters, structures data in memory, and so the browser can make the necessary system calls. But that's a topic for another video. But yeah, that's another program, another layer of logic. So the point here is that writing software can be seen as a reaching a common consensus on how my logic can communicate with your logic. So every program follows this principle. Otherwise, the internet wouldn't exist. Just look at HTTP, for example. Just look at HTTP, the protocol that changed everything. It was a creative act by Tim Berners-Lee to design a way for clients and servers to communicate effectively. But it required two key characteristics that make programming the intersection between art and science. I think this is a great example. Art, because creativity was needed to come up with something new in a novel way to solve the client server request cycle. In science, because it involved validating hypotheses and formulating concepts through logic and mathematics to create this protocol, right? That is still alive, right? With some updates, but still there. So now, I know this might not be convincing because no one will hire you in a technical interview if you justify your ugly solution for sorting an array by calling it your art. So even programmers don't call themselves artists. So we're going to call them differently. We're going to call them functional artists instead. Programmers don't write code just for beauty, but there's an element of beauty involved in the result. There are multiple ways to solve a problem, but some solutions are simple, elegant, and effective, easy to read and maintain. That sense of beauty is there when you write the code and you understand it, and it's not hard. It's well written. But beyond aesthetics, writing clean code is beneficial because it makes systems easier to maintain and scale, saving resources when companies need to pivot, right? The artistic side of programming is not just about self-expression because it has business implications as well, even in open source projects. Programmers are functional artists because coding is a creative act that serves a purpose beyond mere contemplation, which is sometimes what art does. It's usually used to create tools that can be sold, often as a subscription. And yeah, I don't want more subscriptions, but yeah, programming is a special kind of art that expresses how well you understand a problem, how effectively you provide a well written solution purely rooted in logic. So, programmers are functional artists, and I think this is the great way to see the creative act and art itself in programming. So, if you like the video, subscribe, comment your thoughts, and stick around for more content. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.